Could you map out your spiritual journey? Like, did you grow up in faith? Like, when did you were clearly communicating with God, even though you were mad at him? So like, when did you kind of start having those questions and realizing that, maybe this was more of like a spiritual side of you that needed to be healed?
That's a good question. I like the Meat Mafia podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, because y'all get to the meat of it.
Let's get to the bone.
The meat of it is this. Even in the vein of the word mafia, I'll answer the question, but I'm going to go around the bus real quick and I'll get right back to that question. The mafia that exists here in the world right now is a mafia of demonic intent or malevolent intent. And there is a war going on for our souls and our minds at all times. Now, to the degree that we participate in that war, whatever I feed with my anger, my resentment, and my behaviors that are harmful to myself and others, that's what perpetuates the war. That's what demonic energy feeds on. So the only way that I can really, I guess, map out the spiritual journey as to what you're asking is with the awareness of that one fact as a starting place, that we are in a war for our souls, we're in a war for our hearts and our minds. And if we can just be honest about what's really around us, the kind of cosmic soup that we're all swimming in, where we're all wanting to learn how to love ourselves and love other people and accept ourselves and be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. That was my starting place. And it really came from doing the podcast. The podcast used to be called Wellness Force. And it wasn't until 2022 that I changed the name to Wellness and Wisdom, because it was actually from a mushroom journey. And I'm going to credit Carrie Michelle, mother of my children, my love. She turned to me and she's like, well, what is this discontent you're feeling? And I said, I just don't resonate with this word force anymore. It doesn't feel good to me. Like the etymology of the word force is like a taking. And I don't want to take from people. I don't want to force my life. I want to live my life well, which was that question that I asked myself when I was a little kid. And she's like, well, what are you really looking for? Isn't it wisdom? Why don't you just call it Wellness Wisdom? And just like full body Christmas tree came on, the hair stood up on my neck. And I was like, yeah, it's Wellness Wisdom. But it's actually not one or the other, it's both. And so that's when the podcast became Wellness and Wisdom, because the mapping of my spiritual journey came from being in my mother when she was going through traumatic stress, fighting with my father. They got divorced and he left when I was like 2 months old. I was born into the world less than 5 pounds. So I was a preemie baby. I had to be in an incubator for the first 30 days of my life. I came home on Mother's Day, which is kind of a cool thing. And then from there, it was having chronic sinusitis and dealing with gut dysbiosis and taking multiple decades of antibiotics and not having the structure of a father figure in the home to guide me and to teach me what is right and wrong. And again, this is not a knock on my father. Like, he didn't get that either, right? To go back to my emotional intelligence, emotional epigenetic point that I brought up in the beginning. But the mapping could be simplistically stated as, I chose this situation for whatever reason. My soul chose this situation with a mother that was struggling, with a father that was struggling, and then to have multiple decades of struggling, to experience the depths of struggling myself so that I could understand and know the people that I now am in service to that are going through similar yet uniquely different struggling. That's the mapping of my journey. And it continues because wherever you go, there you are. My grandmother told me that once, and it was like the most powerful wisdom I've ever heard. I think I was moving to Hawaii when I was going through my evolution, and I'm like, yeah, Grandma, I'm going to move to Hawaii, and I'm going to like get physical, and I'm going to change my life. And she looked at me and she goes, well, wherever you go, there you are. And I didn't know what she meant at that time, but she planted a seed in my psyche that I can speak to you about now. And it is, just because I change my environment, just because we change our environment, our city that we live in, our friends, yeah, that can help. But it's not the panacea. It's not the golden ticket of evolution or maturation just because you do something quick. And so it was moving to Hawaii. It was getting into personal training. I did personal training for 10 years, which was amazing. It was a great communication tool. It was a way for me to understand women because I didn't grow up with a sister and I didn't really have a lot of relationships with women when I was a young man. And then just going through the next stage of having this dark night when I started the podcast, and many dark nights before then, which we probably don't even have time to go into, but there was many of them. Lots of anger and resentment towards my father, lots of unconscious things that I didn't know how to feel. But it wasn't until I started the podcast that I really got clear on what healing I needed and what healing I got to do publicly. Because that's what great conversations really are. That's what great podcasting really is. It's when you're honest about your stuff publicly and you share exactly where you are, and there's no bullshit and there's no hiding. It's like, we all have problems.
Yes.
Stop hiding. Live your life liberated. That's something that my team and I on a retreat just got very clear on as a company standpoint. We all have problems, guys. All of us have problems. But the more that we hide from them, the more that we feed them. We're only as liberated as our darkest secrets. So if I want to live a liberated life, if I want to be free, the election just happened, right? And everybody's like, oh my God, everybody's feeling a lot. I'm not here to say you should or should not vote for anyone ever. But are you the president of you?
Yes.
Are you the governance of you? Because we can never actually be liberated or free if we outsource our power, if we hold dark secrets, if we're not doing the spiritual work. It's been this constant culmination to your question of what is the map? Gosh, sometimes I don't even know how I got here, dude. I can't give you the perfect map. But I can say that it came from just this really honest place of what is the answer to the question that's burning in my heart? And that answer came multiple times in my life. And it was, just be honest and just keep going. Just be honest with yourself, with others, and just keep going. Don't quit.
Yes.
That's the thing that stops most people, is they're so dishonest with themselves about where they actually are in their spiritual, personal, emotional development, that they fake it for so long. And it's like, eventually your arm's going to fall off if you just hold that mask up forever. Something has to give, right?
Yeah.
Disease, cancer, something will come in and just knock you on your ass. So that's the map. I don't know if I answered that perfectly.
No, that's great.
But there isn't a perfect map.
Yeah.
There
Totally.
ain't no perfect map for maturity and development.
Yeah. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
There's so much wisdom and truth in that answer.